serious with. Still got to be fun, but there'll be time to get
Are you
serious.
still in touch with Cal Ripken at all?
No, I still talk to
You played
Junior.
basketball at his house?
Not anymore.
Okay.
Not anymore. Used to.
I think you did well. I heard he's very competitive, Cal Ripken.
He is. Junior didn't get to where he is by not being competitive. None of us did. You got to be competitive. You know,
Yeah, I know he was a professional player. Were you at his game-breaking streak or no?
I was there.
Okay. Yeah, that was tough. Wasn't it?
It was. It was an exciting time, and something you'll never see again. Or at least we won't see it anyway. And so.
I just thought that was a neat thing, the way it wasn't planned, and Cal Ripken is the last person that would want all that attention. But just the way he ran around the field, I thought was amazing.
He really appreciated it. It was a long time coming, obviously, a lot of build up to it. And I know he was glad it was over.
He got criticism for it.
And so it was a cool thing just for me to be there and experience it with him. It was fun.
When you watched this guy pitch, could you tell he was something special in town when you were a young 11-year-old?
Absolutely.
You said
just the buzz when a guy like that gets on the mound. It's even at that age, you hear. I mean, people in the stands. You guys walk into baseball games. You hear people around you talking. A guy who's not very highly touted gets on the mound. There's not much said. A guy like Benstown gets on the mound 20 years ago. It was no one in town could stop talking about it. Every kid who gets on the mound and pitching at Little League wanted to be at McDonald. Every kid playing shortstop.
Yay long on the glove.
Yeah, you got to
remember.
you got to remember the scenario that got me here to Baltimore, and then how it all happened. And that was why most of the excitement was there. Is the fact that the Orioles started off 0-21 and 88. Okay, had a horrible year, so that's why they got the first pick. But more important than that, if you remember in '89, they were in first place and fighting for a pennant in the middle of the whole thing. So that even added extra excitement to it, because they went from last place to first place and had a chance to beat the Blue Jays all the way down to the last weekend of the season. So I think that added everything to it. People kept saying, well, if you would have signed earlier, you could help them win one or two more games and maybe won the pennant or whatever. And that may or may not be true. It's hard to say, But what everybody forgets too is that the Orioles said this behind the scenes, but they never said it out in the papers and public, was they were in no hurry to sign me. And we talked about it earlier. I'd thrown so many innings, they said, you're going to take 6 weeks off. We sign you tomorrow. You're not playing for 6 weeks in. But that never really made it out there, I mean. And so, because I had to let the arm rest, they knew I'd thrown too many innings, So that's why negotiations got off to a slow start to begin with.
Your rookie year, I mean, we all see stuff now where guys are hitting rookie haze, and we hear about football guys hitting take the goalpost and things. What's probably the funniest rookie hazings you've ever seen done as a pro?
We had a young, 89 team was a real young team too. And then the 90 team was a young team with the exception of, Junior. And then Mickey Telton, I think, had been around a little. But now he hadn't been up a long time, though. And who else came along in 90? Maybe Ron Kittle came over in 90. But I don't remember a whole lot of haze. The worst thing they ever did to anybody was like on the road trips, they'd take their suits when you're trying to fly to the next city or whatever, and they would go hide them in the trunk, and they'd go to the Salvation Army. They'd go to the Salvation Army and get some nasty clothes like pink dresses and stuff. And they'd have to put it all on after the game and walk out in front of all the fans, go to the bus, go to the airplane. That was probably one of the funniest things they did to the rookies, But as far as all the old stuff, I don't know if other teams did it, but the Orioles just weren't real big on the hazing and the rookie stuff. It just other than the clothes and a few tricks here and there, it wasn't anything serious. I mean, I remember somebody putting hot stuff in my shirt one time in spring training first year and trying to put stuff in the jock strap or whatever, But I was always one of the guys looking like, you need to get me. So little things like that would always happen, but there was no serious stuff going on that I can remember.
I thought the media was way too tough with your father, and you knew that going in. What type of relationship did you have with the media? Did they, in all honesty, they frustrate you at times?
As a young guy, I bought into what they said sometimes, and I remember Frank saying, that the Orioles are going to be successful this year. That was in like 90 or 91. You got to win 20 games. I'm thinking, I don't even know how to pitch yet, much less win games. And then some of the media started writing that, and so I fell prey to listening too much and possibly reading too much about what people were saying about me instead of understanding that there was going to be a learning curve involved in what I had to do and what I was trying to do out there. So once I realized that I could only control what I could control and would do my best, then I was okay with it. But leading up, when you're a 21-year-old kid and you're away from home for the first time, you start to fall into that.
So you were good with the media as far as talking?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't a big media guy, still not. I mean, I I didn't really care if I ever talked to them, to be honest. I didn't dislike them, I didn't like doing it a whole lot, you know, and so, but I thought I had a good relationship. I was as honest with them as I could be, and I just wanted them to be honest with me, you know, in return. And what Dad went through, you know, I live across the street from Mom and Dad right now today, and so.
How's he doing?
He's doing fine. Knock on wood, he's doing fine, and just getting older like everybody else. But he laughs about it now, but I think it was tough on him, you know, going through that process. But again, when you have a kid that's in that situation, I mean, as a father, that's what you got to do.
How was he growing up? I mean, did he feel like he had to put a little bit of pressure on you, knowing you had all that talent? Or what was he like as far as, do you hear fathers overdoing
My
it?
dad coached me like a lot of these guys coach their own kids, you know, and I was a kid that never really had to be pushed for whatever reasons. I just had a burning desire to go out there and compete, you know, whether it was baseball, basketball, or football. So I was always wanting to be outside doing something. So, I mean, he didn't have to really push me in any direction. You know, he encouraged me from time to time because I didn't always have success at the youth level or even in high school and college, so I had to be encouraged from time to time. But I wasn't a guy that I had to, Dad wasn't a guy, he didn't come get me and beg me to go do anything sports.
Do you remember when you knew you had a special talent? Was it a high school game that you picked when you just knew, not that you were bragging, but said to yourself, you know, I got a special talent?
Well, you know, I was always a little bit bigger, always a skinny kid, but always a lot bigger than most of my peers that I played with. And I started to realize, you know, at a pretty young age, you know, 9 or 10, that I had a pretty good arm, like threw a little bit harder than most of the guys did. But the big thing that I always had was control, and that's what I teach a lot of the young pitchers now, is that it's not necessarily how hard you throw, it's if you can move the ball around. Because that's what gets guys out in the end, is can you move the ball around, can you throw it on the inside and the outside and move it around if you want to. Jimmy Moyer, Greg Maddox, Tom Glavine, you go on and on and on. And so it wasn't until, like I said, after I got out of high school that I really started to throw the ball hard. And then I had the velocity to go with the control, and that's when you get those two things going. Because everybody's seen the guys that throw hard, but they can't throw it where they want to, and bad things happen with them.
I'm correct, you played with Eddie Murray. What was that like?
I played against Eddie. Eddie wasn't involved when I was Eddie was at Cleveland when I pitched against him.
How did you do against him?
I had some good, got Eddie out, I remember Eddie hit a home run one time too, I think, I mean, Eddie, no,